Hi there. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. He looked at me like I was disposable. Why are we paying for software we should already own? Just like that. Smug smile. Rolex catching the light like he wanted me to notice. I read that email 3 times before I actually laughed. My name's Ember Kincaid. I'm 36 years old. I run an independent tech consulting firm out of Portland, Oregon. For the past 3 years, I've been managing the entire digital security infrastructure for a pharmaceutical distribution network called Vital Core Systems. I'm not their employee. I designed and built a proprietary access management platform that controls every single entry point across their facility network. Badge readers, server room access, cold storage vaults, executive floors. My code, my architecture, my intellectual property. They lease the service. And up until that email they treated me with respect. I landed this contract through Diane Fletcher, their former head of operations. She was brilliant, pragmatic enough to recognize a crisis when compliance auditors started flagging security gaps after a series of breaches at competing firms. She contacted me through an industry colleague. Told me she needed a complete overhaul that would satisfy federal requirements immediately. I didn't patch holes. I rebuilt the foundation. Custom encrypted protocols, biometric integration layers, automated threat response systems across 17 facilities nationwide. Everything routed through my secure server architecture. Not cloud-dependent, not theirs, exclusively mine. The contract spelled this out in explicit detail. I managed authentication, monitoring, incident logging, regulatory documentation. If someone tried to access a restricted zone without proper clearance, the system locked down and alerted 3 separate departments before they could swipe twice. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. For 3 years straight it performed flawlessly. 0 breaches, 0 unauthorized entries, 0 compliance violations. Diane and I barely needed quarterly check-ins. The system was that solid. Then Chase Donovan arrived. New vice president of operations fresh from some consulting firm, the type who wore custom suits and thought disruption meant firing people. You could see the calculation in his eyes. I recognized the pattern. Walked straight out of some leadership seminar, armed with buzzwords and dangerous confidence. Chase started questioning my invoices 2 weeks into his tenure. Claimed he was streamlining vendor relationships. Then he focused entirely on my contract. His opening email seemed innocent enough. Just trying to understand our ongoing operational expenses. But the follow-up revealed his intentions. Please clarify what Vital Core is purchasing and whether we maintain ownership of security protocols. I sent him the relevant clause. Highlighted, underlined, impossible to misinterpret. So he pushed back with a third message. We're exploring internal alternatives moving forward. Right. I understood exactly where this was headed. He either didn't comprehend what he was touching or worse, thought he did. So I remained professional. Sent comprehensive documentation. Monthly security reports, 0 incident track record, threat response logs. Underscored the contractual language stating my firm retains complete ownership of the core security platform. Vital Core paid for active monitoring, real-time access control and emergency protocol management. Not some off-the-shelf software package. Living, breathing infrastructure that adapted to threats in real time. I even included the incident prevention chart. 36 months without a single security failure. He never replied. 4 days later, a calendar notification appeared. No context, just vendor optimization discussions scheduled for 45 minutes. Chase, someone from legal and a procurement specialist I'd never met. Diane wasn't included. She'd taken early retirement 8 months earlier. I accepted the meeting. The call went exactly as predicted. Harsh fluorescent lighting on their end, corporate backgrounds, Chase leading like he was delivering a keynote. We've been analyzing external vendor expenditures and redundancy, he began, gesturing toward a spreadsheet nobody requested. After reviewing our operational framework, we've determined it's time to transition certain external services that duplicate internal capabilities. I stayed silent. Just waited. Chase glanced at notes like he was reading prepared remarks. Effective end of this contract cycle, we're terminating the agreement with Kincaid Security Solutions. We'll need to initiate a clean transition including transfer of all access protocols and security architecture documentation. That was his pitch. He looked back at the camera like he'd just asked about the weather. I unmuted slowly. Did you review Section 9, Ownership and Proprietary Rights? He blinked twice. We paid for the system. It belongs to Vital Core. No, I said evenly. You paid to use the system. You never purchased ownership. Chase's expression tightened, but he didn't back down. Regardless, we'll require those files. Whatever backend you're using, our IT department will assume responsibility moving forward. I nodded once. Absolutely. I'll provide everything you're contractually entitled to. The procurement woman looked relieved. Like that resolved everything. Chase didn't even thank me. Just ended the call with looking forward to a seamless transition. I didn't provide a transition. I sent a polished package titled Vital Core Security Architecture Documentation Final Release. Inside were detailed system diagrams, access flow charts, and a functional interface demonstration. Looked professional, worked smoothly on the surface. You could navigate through facility maps, view access point nodes, review sample alert protocols. The kind of presentation that would impress executives who'd never written security code. But it wasn't connected to anything operational. The diagrams were accurate enough to appear legitimate, stripped of critical authentication keys, server addresses replaced with generic placeholders, security trees kept just shallow enough to maintain false confidence. The interface was pure simulation. Interactive, polished, completely non-functional. They wanted system documentation. Fine. They could explore a beautiful shell. I included a brief note at the end. Attached documentation provides comprehensive simulation materials for internal planning and reference purposes. All materials align with contractual obligations outlined in Section 9. For operational access or live security data, please refer to licensing terms. That was it. No warnings, no emotion, just clean documentation and professional distance. I'd given them precisely what they requested. And I knew exactly what would happen next. I grabbed my leather jacket and drove straight to the coffee shop on Hawthorne. My regular spot when I needed to think clearly. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, the smell of dark roast and cinnamon hanging in the air. I ordered an Americano and found a corner table. The barista set down my cup and walked away. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the app. Kincaid Security Core. Clean white icon with a fingerprint overlay. Professional. I opened it and navigated to the Vital Core client portal. All 17 facilities displayed in organized rows. Green status indicators glowing steadily. Access points functioning normally, badge readers processing, biometric scanners active, data flowing every few seconds like a heartbeat. They wanted control. Perfect. They could discover what control actually looked like without my platform running it. I scrolled to the administrative console, selected master relay settings, and tapped the primary override. The system requested biometric verification. I pressed my thumb against the reader. One pulse. One soft confirmation tone. The screen shifted to neutral gray. Live security relay disabled. No alarms, no explosions, nothing dramatic. Just silence. The green indicators froze solid. Real-time authentication stopped updating. Access points didn't fail or trigger lockdowns. They just stopped communicating. Like freezing time inside each building. I took a sip of the Americano strong enough to make me wince slightly. Within seconds I watched the first tiny disruption ripple through the system. A routine badge scan flickered and died mid-verification. Another access request never completed at all. Employee badges hung in authentication limbo. Workers would continue their routines, scanning their IDs, requesting entry, assuming everything functioned normally. They had no idea the data wasn't processing anywhere. Another sip, hotter this time. The warmth spread through my hands as I held the cup. Maybe it was the coffee. Maybe it was something else entirely. The dashboard stayed quiet for several minutes, like the infrastructure was holding its breath. Then warnings began appearing gradually. First one. Authentication sync failed. Then badge reader offline. Then clusters appearing in rapid succession. Within minutes, entire zones started flashing yellow warnings. Executive floor access in Chicago, pharmaceutical vault in Denver, research wing in Seattle. all frozen with no updated clearances. The automated alerts kept accumulating, each one a reminder that Chase had absolutely no understanding of what he'd touched. The barista walked past and asked if I needed a refill. I pushed my cup toward her without looking up. She poured. I returned my attention to the quiet unraveling. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. By the half-hour mark, the dashboard resembled a controlled demolition. Nothing had physically broken yet. Not the badge readers, not the biometric scanners, not the electronic locks. But without the authentication engine processing micro-level verifications, the drift had already begun. Access systems always have latency. Without correction, latency becomes total failure. The alerts continued arriving, steady and methodical, like the platform was politely announcing the beginning of chaos. Authentication timeout. Badge mismatch. Clearance verification failed. Biometric scan rejected. I finished the refill, set down the cup and stood up. I'd seen enough. Outside, the air felt cooler than it should for mid-morning, crisp against my face. I walked to my car, hands in my pockets, listening to the distant sound of traffic on the bridge. I didn't need to keep monitoring. I already knew what was unfolding inside those facilities. Quiet confusion building into genuine crisis. And they had absolutely no idea yet. The breakdown was happening one failed badge scan at a time. And I just drove home, letting it unfold naturally. By the time I got back to my apartment and kicked off my boots, my inbox had exploded. Urgent Chicago executive floor access down. Badge readers not responding. Denver Vault, please advise immediately. System authentication failing. They flooded in rapidly. Dozens, then hundreds. Facility managers, security chiefs, department heads. Subject lines screaming in all caps, filled with urgent, critical, and immediate response required. I didn't open a single message. The system was performing exactly as designed. Screaming when disconnected from its core. I powered on my laptop and settled into my desk chair, watching the notification counter climb steadily. Then calls started. First from a New York number, then Illinois, then Colorado, then VitalCore's main security operations center. I ignored every single one. Chase tried next. His name appeared on my screen with his corporate photo. Some professional headshot where he looked like he'd just closed a major deal. First call, I let it ring. Second, I watched it go to voicemail. Third, I declined immediately. Then came the text messages. Hey Ember, just following up to ensure you saw the earlier communications. Need to sync quickly. Having authentication issues on our end with the interface you provided. Are we missing a configuration step? Need confirmation on badge reader protocols. Employee access isn't processing. Any insight you can provide? No trace of that executive confidence now. They were attempting to activate the simulation package I'd sent. Clicking through the shell interface like it connected to something real. But there was nothing behind it. Just static screens, demonstration buttons, and a clean logo at the bottom. Kincaid Security Solutions LLC. I checked my backend logs. The system showed hundreds of failed authentication attempts coming from every facility. Error 403, security core unreachable. Handshake failed. Remote authentication server inactive. Null response on clearance query. They were scrambling and losing access control. Without the live authentication engine, badges stopped validating, clearance logs went stale, and access requests couldn't verify authorization levels. Every time someone swiped their badge, the reader should have pinged the central core verified clearance, logged the entry and granted access in under 2 seconds. But now nothing. Just employees standing at locked doors while the infrastructure quietly collapsed. Around 1 o'clock I finally drafted a response. Single document. Single message. I named the file Emergency System Restoration Terms and Conditions.pdf and sent it directly to Chase. Carbon copied to every name that had tried reaching me since dawn. Inside the terms were crystal clear. Reactivation fee, triple the standard monthly rate. Payment structure, full prepayment required, no exceptions, no payment plans. Duration, 96 hours of restored access. No ownership transfer, no backend handoff, no administrative rights. Just a simple reactivation window. Enough to stop the bleeding if they moved fast enough. I provided direct wire transfer instructions. No room for negotiation, no follow-up calls, no meetings. Just a straightforward offer to fix the problem they'd insisted they didn't need me for. Within 8 minutes of sending it, my phone lit up again. Not Chase this time. Legal department. Voicemail only. I played the message once. Ember, this is Caroline Wright from Vital Core Legal Affairs. We're reviewing the terms you submitted and would like to discuss interim access arrangements. Please return our call at your earliest convenience. I didn't call back. That was the reality of systems like mine. When they functioned perfectly, nobody noticed. But the moment they stopped, people noticed everything. Every delay, every denial, every failed entry attempt. Security meant nothing if the authentication said no access. Regulatory agencies didn't care about intentions. They cared about documented clearances. And right now Vital Core didn't have any. I poured myself a glass of water, returned to my chair and refreshed the log once more. Denver Pharmaceutical Vault Batch access lost. Chicago Executive Wing Badge Reader offline. Seattle Research Facility Live authentication unavailable. They were starting to drown. And I wasn't throwing a lifeline for free. The error logs didn't decelerate. They intensified. Red text scrolled across my monitoring display like a swarm. Vital Core's IT department was attacking the system like it owed them something. Hammering every port, attempting to brute force authentication back into a machine I'd already powered down. Every attempt registered identically. Security handshake failed. Remote authentication server unreachable. Timeout waiting for security core response. Then a massive cluster of errors hit simultaneously. Illinois, Colorado, Washington. Like someone in their IT department finally lost patience and tried rebooting the entire access network using the simulation package. That alone made me shake my head. They were attempting to resurrect a live operational system using demonstration materials. It was like watching someone try to start a car by turning a photograph of keys. Another wave of logs arrived. Invalid authentication node. No backend authority detected. Access request rejected without proper credentials. I leaned back and stretched my fingers. Someone from their IT team sent me an extensive email, far too long, requesting clarification on authentication mapping protocols and local endpoint configuration parameters. I skimmed it quickly. They had zero comprehension of what they were examining. I typed one sentence and hit send. That's a demonstration package. You're attempting to authenticate real access using simulated credentials. It's not going to work. Within minutes, more errors appeared. The system was being probed aggressively. Random authentication attempts, malformed handshake requests, failed signature verification. They were chasing shadows. They still hadn't grasped the fundamental truth. Nothing was local. Everything lived on my off-site secure servers. The package I'd provided wasn't incomplete. It was never designed to authenticate anything real. Then the access control failures started accumulating in the logs. Irrecoverable clearance data. Chicago facility badge drift detected. Denver vault authentication integrity loss across multiple zones. Employee clearances that should have updated every few seconds were now hours outdated. Some badges were showing contradictory states. Active and revoked simultaneously. And every time an employee attempted to scan their badge, it just threw another error into the chaos. My phone buzzed again. A different attorney this time. Another voicemail, stilted and formal, offering to discuss interim restoration arrangements. I deleted it without listening to the complete message. Chase, though, went completely silent. No emails, no calls, no panicked texts. Nothing. Either he'd been sidelined or he finally understood how catastrophically out of his depth he was. Around 3 o'clock, the first message from executive leadership arrived. We are unable to restore baseline security functionality. Need immediate discussion regarding resolution. I didn't reply. Another batch of access failures hit my logs. Thousands of employee clearances flagged as unverifiable. Regulatory compliance couldn't ignore that. Insurance underwriters couldn't ignore that. And the longer they let the system sit dead, the worse the damage compounded. Authentication alone wasn't sufficient. Documented clearance data had to support it. Without data, the security theater meant nothing. At 4:15, legal emailed again. Shorter this time. Ember, we need to speak with you. Please respond immediately. I didn't. Then at 4:37, everything stopped for a moment. No new alerts, no new messages. Quiet. The kind that typically precedes something breaking entirely. 6 minutes later, the video conference invite arrived in my inbox. Subject line: Critical Leadership Meeting today 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Participants: CEO, General Counsel, Chief Security Officer, 2 VPs I didn't recognize. And at the very bottom, listed almost as an afterthought: Chase Donovan, VP Operations. I clicked accept, pushed back from my desk and stood up. Time to let them explain exactly how badly they'd dismantled their own security infrastructure. The moment I joined the video conference, I recognized the panic behind their professional facades. Top center was the CEO, Arthur Gaines. Silver hair, navy suit, jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. His name card read, Arthur L. Gaines, Chief Executive Officer. Beside him, General Counsel Helen something, typing frantically like her career depended on it. Chief Security Officer sat off to the side looking like he wanted to disappear into his office chair. And in the bottom corner, camera disabled, microphone muted. Chase Donovan. Silent. Good. Ember, thank you for joining on such short notice, Gaines began. His voice attempted calm authority, but the strain was obvious. I want to start by acknowledging the situation. We're aware of the disruption and our priority is restoring systems to full operational status. Helen jumped in immediately. Yes, and we appreciate your previous documentation. We've reviewed the emergency restoration terms, and while we're prepared to proceed, there are several items we'd like to revisit. Specifically the rate structure and payment timeline. No, I said simply. Helen paused mid-sentence. Excuse me. No negotiation. You disconnected the controls. Now you want them back. That's the cost. Gaines cleared his throat forcefully. We're not disputing your value, Ember, but tripling your rate without phased payment options is. You had phased payments. You canceled them. Helen tried again, shuffling papers on her desk. Perhaps we could reach a compromise. Partial payment up front, remainder upon delivery of services. I didn't even blink. Full prepayment. No ownership transfer, no back-end handoff, no administrative access to my servers. 96 hours of restored service. That's the offer. She started arguing, flipping through documents. Probably the contract. I waited patiently. Section 9, I reminded her calmly. Authentication control is leased. Security architecture is proprietary and off-site. It's not yours. You don't get to rewrite that reality now. The chief security officer finally spoke up. Voice low, defeated. We've lost clearance verification for over 8,000 employee badges. Multiple facilities are operating on manual security checks. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's a catastrophic regulatory exposure. Nobody responded to that statement. Not even Gaines. Chase remained silent the entire time. I didn't know if he was muted or finally smart enough to shut up. Either way, I didn't care. His little cost-cutting initiative had just crashed face-first into a wall constructed from my code and my contract. Helen exhaled into her microphone. There has to be some middle ground we can reach. There isn't, I said flatly. What I sent you is the middle ground. I'm not selling the architecture. I'm not licensing intellectual property. I'm not surrendering back-end access. You get restored service for 96 hours. You pay in advance. Then we discuss next steps. Silence filled the call. Gaines looked off-screen toward someone, then back at Helen. Can you process that wire transfer immediately? She hesitated briefly. Yes. Do it, he ordered. I didn't say goodbye. Just clicked, leave meeting. 22 minutes later, the wire transfer cleared. Full amount. Prepaid. No conditions, no questions attached. I opened my dashboard and navigated to the Vital Core Master Relay Control. The system came back online like flipping a main circuit breaker. Zones illuminated green one after another. Badge readers reconnected, authentication data synchronized, and the error alerts disappeared in reverse. Pharmaceutical vaults authenticated back into compliance. Executive floor scanners synced with current clearances. Research facility access queues resumed processing like they'd never stopped. I watched it all unfold from my laptop while drinking room temperature water. They could breathe again. But they understood now. This wasn't plug-and-play technology. This was mine. And it never stopped being mine. The following morning I made coffee and sat at my desk like nothing unusual had occurred. The system was running flawlessly. No alerts, no lag, no ignorant questions. Vital Core had returned to normal operations, which meant I could finally relax slightly. Then my phone buzzed. LinkedIn notification. Message from Chase Donovan. Challenging week. Would appreciate connecting for a virtual coffee to exchange insights and learnings. I stared at it for several seconds, blinked slowly and let out one short laugh. Virtual coffee? Like we were colleagues sharing notes after a professional development seminar. I didn't bother responding. Just closed the app and opened my email inbox. That's where the real message waited. Subject line: Long-term partnership proposal, Vital Core Systems. Sent from the new VP of Strategic Partnerships. Not Chase. Some other executive trying to pretend the previous week never happened. The PDF attachment was substantial. I opened it carefully. 7-year exclusive service agreement. Full-time security infrastructure management. Direct system oversight. Priority emergency response protocols. The compensation was significant. Easily triple what I'd earned previously. On paper it appeared like a dream contract. But underneath the polished language it was a leash. They wanted predictability. What they actually wanted was ownership without the legal title. I didn't hesitate for a second. I pulled up my standard contract template and rewrote the entire agreement from scratch. No shared intellectual property. Not a single line of code. Not one architecture diagram. Not a single server access credential. 90-day paid termination clause. If they walked away, they still owed me full quarterly payment. Complete annual payment due before service activation. No net terms, no invoicing games, no payment delays. And most critically, absolute control over authentication protocols and back-end infrastructure. They didn't modify the system without my explicit written authorization. Took me under 90 minutes to lock down every clause. I sent the revised version back with no explanatory message. Just the file and the subject line. Final terms effective upon signature. Less than 8 hours later, it returned fully executed. No edits, no comments, no requests for modifications. They didn't even hesitate. I opened the live relay dashboard again just to watch it function. Data flowing cleanly, authentication processing smoothly, everything precisely where it should be. My security architecture was the pulse. They finally comprehended that reality. Another message appeared in my inbox. This one from the Chief Security Officer. Just 2 words. Thank you. I didn't respond. They had the contract. They had the system access. And I had the control back where it belonged permanently. The invitation arrived 3 days after contract execution. Subject line: Requested workshop infrastructure dependency training. Organizer: Julian Keller, Director of Security Operations. I hadn't interacted with him yet. New appointment. Quiet presence in the email threads. The invitation didn't include Chase. Excellent. Scheduled for 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. Virtual attendance. Internal audience only. The agenda indicated 45 minutes. I knew it would run longer. I logged in 5 minutes early. Julian was already present. Early 40s, button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to elbows, professional headset, no visible ego. He greeted me with a slight nod. Thanks for making time for this, he said. We've got a lot of people who need clarity. No problem, I replied. Let's make it clear. Participants started joining gradually. Technical leads from every region, facility security administrators, some IT infrastructure faces, procurement representatives pretending to understand security architecture. Just over 40 names total. Julian opened the session formally. Appreciate everyone attending. As you're all aware, we recently experienced a significant breakdown in operational security continuity. Today's briefing is led by Ember Kincaid, our contracted security architect. She's here to clarify what we control, what we lease, and what we fundamentally depend on. He muted his microphone. All attention shifted to me. I shared my screen. First slide. Bold white letters on black background. Your security infrastructure is a rental. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, I said directly. But we're not going to sugarcoat reality either. I'm going to walk you through what components of your security system you own, what you don't own, And what will catastrophically fail if someone makes another incorrect assumption? Slide 2. Color-coded security system map. Green for owned hardware. Blue for leased equipment. Red for authentication dependencies. Over 60% of the screen was red. Who here knows where your live authentication control logic actually runs? Silence. One guy unmuted hesitantly. On-site servers at each facility? No, I said firmly. Wrong. Those are just interface relay points. The actual authentication logic runs on my off-site secure server infrastructure. None of you have access to it. Slide 3. Access control hierarchy diagram. Only one name under primary authority. Kincaid Security Solutions LLC. Another participant tried jumping in. But weren't we supposed to install backup authentication scripts after last week? Scripts are meaningless if the authentication engine is gone, I explained. You had a dashboard interface skin, not the operational wiring. When you severed the connection, you lost more than visibility. You lost actual control over who enters your facilities. Several people leaned back from their cameras. One woman typed something in the chat window and immediately deleted it. Nobody spoke. I advanced to the next slide. Single phrase in bold red text. System failure risk. Critical dependency Kincaid Security Solutions. Julian unmuted. So if you disconnect again, the entire security infrastructure collapses? Not slows down. Not glitches temporarily, I clarified. Collapses completely. More silence. I let it sit there. Look, I said finally, I don't care whether you like this arrangement, but you need to respect it. This security architecture isn't here to flatter your internal IT department. It's here to protect your facilities, your employees, and your regulatory compliance. If you want that protection, you follow the established rules. Mine. Julian nodded slowly. Understood completely. I ended the screen share. Any questions? Not a single hand raised. Not one question submitted in chat. Workshop concluded 8 minutes over schedule. Nobody dropped from the call early. Julian stayed after everyone else left. He leaned closer to his camera and said quietly, that was exactly what they needed to hear. Nobody's been that direct with them before. I gave him a single nod. You don't fix fragility by pretending it doesn't exist. He didn't argue. Just sat there looking thoughtful. Then he disconnected. I closed my laptop and let the silence settle around me. Finally. No damage control, no backpedaling, no artificial pleasantries. Just facts. And for once they actually listened. 4 weeks passed quietly. System remained stable. No disruptions, no surprise maintenance requests, no emergency calls at midnight. VitalCore didn't miss a single payment deadline. The direct deposits arrived on schedule, full amounts like clockwork. It was the first time in 3 years I didn't need to remind someone that functional technology wasn't equivalent to permanent ownership. I kept the monitoring dashboard open during business hours out of habit. Every zone green, every badge authentication processing, every alert logged and cleared according to protocol. Then the messages started arriving. Not from VitalCore. From outside. Other pharmaceutical companies. Cold storage facilities. Research laboratories. Small regional players, large national operations. A couple industry leaders I hadn't spoken with in years. Each message danced carefully around the same concept. Heard about the situation at VitalCore. Would be interested in exploring security hardening options. Do you offer external authentication hosting? Strictly confidential discussion, of course. I didn't answer any of them. Not yet. My contract with VitalCore still had 18 months remaining. Locked, prepaid, bulletproof. I wasn't rushing into anything until that ran its course completely. But the shift had definitely started. People were talking. They'd witnessed the collapse and they finally understood who controlled the switch. I opened a blank document and started drafting a new rate structure. Top of the page in bold, no post-service billing, no exceptions. Below that, I constructed it line by line methodically. Emergency restoration premiums. Real-time authentication hosting fees. Exclusive control clauses. Reactivation surcharges. Everything structured in my favor. This wasn't about revenge. It was about establishing structure. Leverage. No more trust-based nonsense. If you wanted access to the engine, you paid before touching the ignition. I saved the file as 2026_master_terms_Kincaid_security.pdf and moved it into my encrypted folder. Email notification pinged again. Another unknown logistics security firm asking if I'd ever considered diversifying my client portfolio. I didn't respond immediately. They could wait. I pulled up the rate sheet and gave it one final review. No fluff, no loopholes, just stone-cold terms written in plain language. Emergency service surcharge. 30% premium added to base rate. Non-refundable. No post-service negotiations on scope. Everything explicitly defined. If it's not documented in writing, it's not included in the agreement. That was the new standard. I stared at the header. Kincaid Security Solutions 2026 rate structure. Then saved it, encrypted it, and backed it up to 3 separate secure locations. This wasn't just documentation. It was the boundary line between old business practices and the new paradigm. VitalCore's security collapse had accomplished what no marketing campaign ever could. I didn't need advertisements. I had a case study. And the industry was repeating it like gospel. The woman who shut down a national pharmaceutical distribution network security in under 40 minutes and made them pay triple to restore access. The contractor who wrote her own playbook. The one nobody could replace. I opened a new browser window and placed an order. Custom programmable security console. Top-tier multi-channel override capability. Variable response load management. Encrypted command interface. Complete overkill for my current setup. But I wanted it. Not for functionality. For what it represented. When it arrived 5 days later, I unpacked it like a trophy. Polished black surface. Deep matte finish. Custom configuration ports along the side. I set it up on my desk, ran the diagnostic test sequence, then didn't touch it again. I didn't need to use it. It just sat there. Quiet, clean, waiting. A reminder. This wasn't employment anymore. This was ownership. My inbox pinged again. Another new company name. Another infrastructure security assessment request. Another network of facilities built on half-implemented patchwork asking me to examine their vulnerabilities. I took a sip of coffee. Eyes on the screen. Didn't respond. Not yet. Let them wait a bit longer. Because now they understood something fundamental. Ember Kincaid didn't just fix broken security systems. I owned the way forward. And I decided who got access to it.